Okay, I am Levi, and I'd like to introduce my special guest, Steven Silverman.
Appreciate you having me on here, Levi. I'm really honored. Really excited to talk some football.
All right, to start us off, we have Jacksonville, Detroit. Who are you looking for to have a big fantasy day in that matchup?
So one of my favorite things is, and I want to highlight that Jacksonville, Detroit specifically, has one of the things I look at is the Las Vegas odds, the highest over-unders, and a close spread. And while Detroit and Jacksonville are not good teams, this game should be loaded with fantasy goodness. What do you think, Levi?
So I have a paper here saying all the rankings, and Detroit has not been good in the run. I would expect James Robinson to have a huge day, not only in the run game, but in the pass game too, especially if DJ Chark is out. Like we saw in the Miami game, when DJ Chark was out, all he could do was the dink and dunks to James Robinson.
I completely agree. And it doesn't look like, as of right now, Saturday afternoon, that Chark is going to be good to go. And even if he is, he's going to be limited. And like a lot of rookie wide receivers we've seen this year, fire up some Laviska. I really like Laviska to score against Detroit and get at least 6 catches. And there aren't, if you're really desperate and you play, a 14-team league, you can look at Keelan Cole or even Chris Conley, who usually sees additional work when Chark is out.
Who do you have as a sleeper in this matchup?
I would have to say Conley on the Jacksonville side. And once again, in deeper leagues, first of all, Kenny Golladay is one of my favorite receivers of the week because of the super high total and because Jacksonville is really bad on all sides of in all defensive metrics. Marvin Jones Jr., we've seen him do it, have these really crazy games where he can get 3-4 touchdowns. And he's been kind of AWOL. He could be due. Who do you like, Levi? Does someone maybe on the radar?
I actually think that DeAndre Swift could have a good game with Adrian Peterson's questionable. And Kerryon Johnson, it doesn't seem like they really want him. It seems like they want Swift, but they don't think he's at his full potential yet. And I think they might give him a shot against a Jacksonville team that hasn't been great against the run.
I think you're totally right. That's one of the things that maddens me about Matt Patricia. I don't know why they hate Kerryon Johnson. I think he's good. I've always thought he was good coming out of the SEC. And I think they should have traded him. I really don't get it.
Right.
I like him a lot as a player.
Moving on to maybe the matchup of the week. We have Tampa Bay versus Green Bay. Who do you like?
Woo! So I got to tell you, this one has a nice over-under as well. And what's really nice is Chris Godwin's going to be back, and I like him. He's always good, especially for Brady's style of play, his really good short, accurate passes. And Godwin really has more of the speed that Mike Evans lacks. But obviously Godwin and Evans, if you have them in your leagues, you're starting them. Levi, do you know what Ronald Jones has done in the past 2 games?
He's been very good, but I think this is going to be a game which slows down. Plays a Packers defense that hasn't given a lot up to running backs.
Yeah, it's quiet. He's quietly rushed for 100 yards in the past 2 games. Rojo. It really surprised me when
That is with Leonard Fournette being out, and
he's likely to be back. Exactly. I completely agree.
A guy I don't like on Tampa Bay though is Mike Evans. I think it's likely Jair Alexander will be on him, and I think Jair Alexander might be one of the most underrated players in the NFL. I think
he's a great corner. Do you think Godwin being back helps Evans or hurts Evans? Or
hurt.
doesn't?
So I think I think it hurts him in the future. I think this game doesn't really matter. I really like Devontae Adams. I think while I don't like Aaron Jones, but I think while the Tampa Bay's been really good stopping the run, they haven't been so good against the pass. And these guys, they're second and first year players. They're not these veterans. And I think Devontae Adams is going to have a big day.
I completely agree. He leads the NFL in target share when healthy, albeit it's been a pretty small sample size since he was out. I think the Packers are really happy to have him back. Why don't you like Aaron Jones? Because I feel the same way. He's like the top running back that I hate this week.
So I think Aaron Jones he got more work because Devontae Adams out, especially in the pass game. I think now Devontae Adams is back, he's not going to get that much work. And Tampa Bay, they have not allowed against the run. They have not. If I'm remembering correctly, Austin Eckler got hurt against them. I think he was the only top 10 running back going into that game, and he didn't even come out.
Oh, so you're saying like someone like Shaq Barrett's going to hurt Aaron Jones? Is that an official Levi Hartman prediction here?
I'm saying the only top 10 running back they allowed
I hope not.
hasn't even come out of that game. I don't think Aaron Jones is going to finish inside the top 10 for rushing.
I agree. Tampa is number 2 against the run. Their defense is, in my mind, elite.
All right. What about we have Monday night, Arizona versus the Cowboys?
I think this one is one of the biggest question marks. Wouldn't you agree?
I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like we could either see a Dallas team that comes out on fire and is so good, or we could see a Dallas team that stinks and Andy Dalton throws 4 picks.
I completely agree. Dalton, who knows what he is anymore? And quarterback, obviously, everybody knows it's an important position in the NFL.
A sleeper I have in this game is Christian Kirk. I think he goes against a Cowboys secondary, and he was hurt. He comes back, and he was good last week. I think he could have a good game.
I like that call. I thought it was going to be Andy Isabella after he had that 2-touchdown game, but once again, then he went invisible. I'm looking for Chase Edmonds on the Arizona side to kind of overtake Kenyon Drake in the backfield because Kenyon Drake has really stunk. And as a Dolphins fan, it really pained me to see Kenyon Drake have success when he left the Dolphins. But now seeing him stink makes me feel a lot better.
You know what? Moving on to our next matchup, you know what pains me? Carson Wentz is throwing too many interceptions.
Oh man!
Let's talk about that game. Who do you have having a big day?
On the Eagles side?
No, just in general in this matchup.
I think the Ravens defense. So Philly has one of the lowest implied team totals on the NFL slate at I think 18 or 18.5 points. And this is because it looked like Alshon Jeffrey might come back. He's not back. Deshaun Jackson out. So they're going to rely on that receiver who just went crazy. Fulgham. So if you have Fulgham, you're probably playing him. Zach Ertz. Do you like Ertz?
No, I just traded him.
He's I think he got 1 catch for 6 yards on 6 targets last week. Of all the top tight ends, he's the biggest disappointment. And I really like Miles Sanders, actually, because
I really like him too, because I think while this Ravens defense, you might be wondering, why do these guys think Miles Sanders is going to be good? He plays this Ravens defense who's been absolutely amazing. Well, the reason why is, yes, they've been good against the run, but with Wentz not being well, I think he's going to rely on Sanders more, and they've given up a lot of yards in the past to running backs.
Exactly. So there's something I want to bring up kind of generally here, and this is going to touch multiple running backs in multiple games. So I think Joe Mixon had 24 carries against the Ravens. That's a lot last week, even though they got blown out. And he only got 59 yards. But we know that in fantasy, volume is king. And Boston Scott and Corey Clement have virtually no role in the offense against the Eagles. And Miles Sanders is the guy. And with all these receivers out, he's going to get a lot of passing work too. And they just went into Pittsburgh, and he still ripped off a 74-yard touchdown. And we know that Miles Sanders is good and he's capable. And at home against Baltimore, he just has so many ways that he can get you, the points that you need at least to, meet expectations.
A guy
what do you think?
I don't like, if you have him, I would bench him. Let's say you have Gardner Minshew. I'd bench him I'd bench Lamar Jackson. I really would.
What?
This Eagles defense, they've been really good. Now, it's one thing if Slay's out. If Slay plays, bench him. If he doesn't, you can play him. I don't care.
Yeah. So I didn't want to come off at like braggy at the beginning, but I am kind of a professional sports journalist, as you know, Levi. I was last season a breaking NFL news reporter on the weekends. Most important time for a site called Roto Grinders, and they're the biggest content provider for daily fantasy sports sites like DraftKings and FanDuel. So I was sending out push notifications and tweets to hundreds of thousands of people. So I was on top of this stuff. And this kind of news is stuff that I know. Slay is highly, highly questionable, has been an excellent shadow corner this season. And if he does not play, I love me some Marquise Brown. Slay currently in concussion protocol, and we will not know until 11:30 a.m. tomorrow whether he's in or out, because inactives come out an hour and a half before every game.
I don't love Marquise Brown, and I really like Mark Andrews, though.
How come?
Because I think with Claypool, he would defend the Eagles defense because the Slay was on somebody else or wasn't playing at one point, I think. And then the other corner was on Nicole Roby-Coleman, was on the first receiver, and then the second receiver is playing Nathan Jerry. So I think Mark Andrews could have a really big day.
Are we in agreement? I think both Mark Andrews and Brown can, but are we in agreement that if Slay is out, Brown can still eat, or you still think Brown is not a good play?
I think you can play Brown. I'm saying if you have
but if Slay is out, Brown becomes a much better play.
Yes, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I love about Andrews is how many touchdowns he's scored, but at the same time, it doesn't seem so sustainable to me. And that's part of the reason I love Brown, is because Brown has gotten tackled close to the end zone, and Brown has gotten unlucky, Brown owners, and then Andrews catches those little 5-yard touchdowns or whatever that Brown didn't score. So Brown has been a beneficiary Andrews has been a beneficiary of Brown getting tackled and getting unlucky near the end zone. And, natural statistical regression, I feel like that'll change. What do you kind of think of that when you see a guy like Andrews scoring a bunch of touchdowns, kind of like how Derrick Henry or Adam Thielen are? Do you think that kind of stuff is sustainable, and do you like to keep targeting those guys, like in trades?
I think yes is. In this case, I think Mark Andrews, I think he will see regression, but I do think he can still be fantasy relevant.
Well, of course, these guys are studs, but and you said you just traded Zach Ertz. He's actually someone I would almost target as a buy low candidate, and someone like Thielen might be someone I sell high. What's kind of your philosophy, since I know you're really good at fantasy trades and I'm not? What's kind of your philosophy around that?
I feel, let's say I had Gesicki on the bench, and I think Gesicki is going to be good. And I don't I feel like I saw the value for Ertz, especially because a lot of people in this league are Eagles fan, and I decided I was going to trade him.
Yeah, big part of it is knowing who's in your league, huh?
Yeah. All right,
It's always
moving
a
on
part.
to our next matchup. We have Bears versus the Panthers. What do you think of this one?
I need to ask you. This is the one thing. This is another big thing, along with volume is king in fantasy. Do running backs matter? It kind of have you heard of that before,
Yeah,
or
you were
a
telling me
similar
that
statement
before
before?
the draft where you just go like all receivers and running backs.
Does it matter if it's Christian McCaffrey or Mike Davis getting the same amount of work?
I know it's surprised, but I think Mike Davis is better for this team than Christian McCaffrey.
What?
Here's why. I feel like when Christian McCaffrey was on the field, their main priority was giving it to him. And Teddy wasn't really able to. He was just sort of giving it to McCaffrey, doing his thing. And then the defense were realizing it, and they were just killing McCaffrey. And then when Bridgewater didn't have anything to do, now that Mike Davis is in it, he can spread the ball around. And they've been better. They've been 3-0 without McCaffrey and 0-2
No.
with.
Keep going. It makes no sense, right? But it's one of the most baffling things, fantasy included, fantasy aside, this year.
All right. I have a sleeper. This one is Darnell Mooney. I know this Panthers defense has been very good, or Darryl, whatever his name is, has been very good against receivers.
You got it.
But some of that is that they've been so bad against the run. I think this Bears defense, Bears offense is going to be good. And Darryl, whatever his name is going to have a big day.
It's funny because I don't think we have too many friends that are Bears fans, but I still follow a lot of beat reporters on Twitter. And I actually have a friend who's really good friends with one of their main beat reporters, Kevin Fishbane. So I like to see what he says. And it's almost like every week you hear, Darnell Mooney has now overcome Anthony Miller in the passing game. But, it's almost like they're competing. Anthony Miller's a pretty good player. I don't know. I like the call. Mooney obviously has a role. I'm still trying to figure out, the differences in the passing game with Foles and Trubisky. I definitely like what I see better with Foles. And I think Allen Robinson is just so good. But obviously, what we really should be talking about and what we are talking about is the guys that you, the sleepers, the guys that you might want to start or sit. Obviously, A-Rob is a guy you're going to start no matter what.
Maybe the biggest breakout in this next matchup, we got Steelers-Browns. Who do you have having a big day in this one?
So, speaking of buy low people that I like Zach Ertz, I really like going after Deontay Johnson. In the league that we're in, whoever has Deontay Johnson, I sent them an offer.
Who?
Because, again, he is out for this week, meaning it's Claypool and Juju. And
how would you start Juju?
Absolutely. And I think everybody's going to chase a 4-touchdown historic Claypool game unless they have really good receivers.
That's not going to happen again. That might be the best game of his career.
But if he scores a touchdown, isn't he still a good start?
Yeah.
Another thing, again, the Vegas total. Cleveland is quietly Cleveland-Pittsburgh quietly is expected to go over 50 points, just under, very close to the Tampa-Green Bay game in terms of expected points scored. Isn't that a little surprising?
Yeah, a sleeper I have who might have a good is a boomer bust in this game. If you need him, if you need a guy, pick him up.
Say James Washington.
What?
Don't say James Washington.
No, I'm not.
Phew.
Benny Snell.
Oh my God.
I think he's going to have a good game. I think
I need to hear the rationale behind this one, Levi.
I think while Connor is going to be the lead back. If you need a guy maybe playing your flex, Benny Snell is probably going, not probably, but might be an under the radar guy you might want to target.
The question is though, you want to target this Cleveland defense? They're 4-1. It's pretty confusing. I can't tell if they're really good or just average.
Like it's
the volume, the opportunity.
I think Myles Garrett is a problem, but I think that the offensive line is good. Even though David DeCastro, I know, is out, that's big. But what's his name? Avalana Villanueva is good, and they might move him to the other side. I think Myles Garrett will have less than 2 sacks.
Yeah, and he's been great this year.
Yeah.
I want to ask you another question about Garrett. What are the chances that he and Mason Rudolph hug each other before or after?
I think this is going to be their hug. They're going to stand 6 feet apart, and they're just going to do like, no, he's going to do this.
I would love to see a little something, right?
All right, next one we have 2 teams that haven't been good: the Vikings and the Falcons. I think the Vikings have been maybe the biggest disappointment this season.
Oh man, I agree, except I think the Falcons have. But definitely 2 of the most disappointing teams.
I think Justin Jefferson is going to have a big game.
I think, you know what? If you have guys in this game, play everybody. Except these are the guys I would consider Russell Gage in your wide receiver 3 spot. I would consider Irv Smith at tight end if you're desperate for a tight end. I'm serious. These guys, I would consider Hayden Hurst for sure. Play everybody. I love this game so much.
A guy I like, who I've liked for a while, but has been a backup to Dalvin Cook that you have in our league, is Alexander Madison.
Levi, don't get me started, man. This guy is my favorite player of the week. I can't even. Matthew Berry, by the way, who's tweeted at me twice in my life, and it was like over a decade ago, but it was just like the coolest thing when I was in high school and I wanted to be a sports journalist and whatever. This is what Matthew Berry said a few days ago. He said, these are the guys that I would start over Alexander Madison. Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry. That's it. He's saying that Madison is the number 3 back this week. You know what Madison did last week? He ran for 112 yards on 20 carries, and now he gets
maybe if he does it again, maybe the Vikings could consider trading Dalvin Cook.
Oh my no! They just signed him to a huge extension, but
I was gonna say, maybe they would have made a time machine and went back in time and not extended him.
I agree with you on Jefferson, and that alluding to what I was talking about, Thielen. Thielen is scoring so many touchdowns, and I just don't think it's sustainable. I love Jefferson, man.
A guy, even though he has a great matchup, is Julio Jones. If I'm not in on him, even though it's a great matchup.
Let me ask you something about Julio. It seemed like the whole week it was almost an assumption by fantasy players all over the world that he was not going to play. He now has no injury designation. Period. What do you think of that? I still think he's hurt.
I think it's one of those things where, he's so good and he wants to play, but he knows he's hurt and he knows it's going to be hard for him.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how do you think the Falcons will come out, with their head coach let go?
I don't know. I
think it's kind of like the Cowboys where you just really don't know.
All right, for one of our last matchup we're going to do, we're going to skip a few, is going to be Patriots versus Broncos.
Sorry, I almost threw up there.
Who do you like in this one?
Well, I think you can tell. Patriots defense.
I got Melvin Gordon, and I like him. I think he's going to have a good game.
Breaking news as of about a little over an hour ago, Melvin Gordon is not traveling to New England not because of his DUI that he just got, but because of an illness, and it's not COVID-19. So Philip Lindsay is actually returning from injury, and he will be starting with Royce Freeman as the number 2.
I was going to say,
think about that situation.
A sleeper I have in this matchup, I have 2, one on each side. N'Keal Harry, if he's on the waiver wire, I get him. And I really, 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 really like Royce Freeman. I know he hasn't done much this year, but I think that's because I don't think he's being terrible. I just think they've been down a lot and had to throw the ball. I think this game could be it could be high scoring, or it could just be run, like 40 rushes.
This game is really, really interesting because we have so many guys that are now hurt and now coming back from injury. And there was a bye week, right? We have Cam Newton coming back, Stephon Gilmore coming back, Drew Lock coming back, Noah Fant is dinged up, now Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay's coming back, and Sony Michel's still out. I mean, it's a lot of moving parts, right? So it's hard to figure out. Why do you like Royce so much more than Lindsay?
I don't like Royce so much more. I feel like Lindsay is a lot of his production has come from the passing game, and I think they're going to shut it down, is basically what I'm saying. I think it's going to be a lot. I think I wouldn't start Jerry Jeudy. I'd have bench him. And I wouldn't, I mean, if you have other running backs, don't start Philip Lindsay, because I could see him having 8 fantasy points. If you're going up, would you rather start him over maybe Justin Jackson, who's a guy I really like this week?
Interesting. And would you sit Jeudy because Gilmore's back?
So, yeah, part yes, part I think the other, I might not start him even if Gilmore was out, because the other cornerback, the second, I forget his name, like Justin Coleman, I think, or Justin Jones. He's very underrated. He's very fast, and I think he could keep up with Jeudy. He kept up with Lockett when Lockett did have a good game, but I didn't see him getting roasted. I saw Lockett just being Lockett.
Yeah, he's very boom or bust. What do you think about the running back situation in New England? Because that's always a mess. But we did see Damian Harris have a little bit of
I have as a sleeper, a guy I buy low on is James White. Very tragic what happened with the whole thing.
Just 15 minutes from where I'm at right now. Crazy enough.
And but I think back to football, Damian Harris. What do we know about this guy? He can catch the ball. He's good, but you can make a case for Christian McCaffrey. I don't care. I'd say James White is a top 5 receiving back in the NFL.
Oh, you're absolutely right about that. And I do think, though, that the personal narrative there with the tragedy, I do think these things matter. And I do think these little things do play a role in fantasy. For example, little things like Matt Breida facing his former team, the 49ers, last week, got some additional action. There's always those revenge narratives, and James White returning to practice being extremely motivated, and potentially seeing more work with Sony Michel on IR.
All right, now we have our spotlighted player of the week. We have Antonio Gibson. Now, I know he's been good, but last week, what did he do? I can answer that. Pretty much nothing. But this week he plays not a great rushing defense, the Giants. And, it was the Rams. I mean, Aaron Donald might be the best player in the NFL. Period.
He is.
Best defensive player, for sure.
Best player, period. Better than Mahomes.
That's the person who took Mahomes at 16 over Nuke.
Book it. And if you have any problems with that, you can contact Levi Hartman.
But
Aaron Donald is better than Patrick Mahomes.
I really like Antonio Gibson. I'm playing against him, so I hope not that he doesn't have a good game. But I'm worried that might not happen. I think he's going to have a very good game. And the Giants haven't been great. Again, they have not. The best player on that defense probably is a cornerback. Or no, Jabril Peppers. But he's a safety.
Look, there is a trend that we've been talking about here. If you notice, what have we said? We like Claypool. We like Jefferson. We don't like guys. And who have we not talked about? We have not talked about guys like Jonathan Taylor. We haven't talked what's bizarre about this whole coronavirus football season. No camp. We thought that rookie receivers were going to have a tougher time getting used to offenses, and that veteran wide receivers were going to be better in fantasy, and that rookie running backs were going to be better in fantasy. And the opposite has happened, which is really weird, right?
And a guy we haven't talked about who I really like this week is T. Higgins. I know he plays the Colts, sure, but even though this defense has been really good, I think Jarvis had a good game last week, and Odell. So I think they've had a really good run defense. Don't start Joe Mixon, period. Don't. I think he's not going to play well.
Joe Mixon.
What?
I like me some Joe Mixon, again, just because of the volume he gets. He's not going to, he had an extremely explosive game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He had 151 yards, 3 touchdowns.
He had 42 fantasy points. The week before that, before that game, he was averaging 5 fantasy points per game.
I just like the volume he gets. Volume.
And
I do like T. Higgins also, though. He got 4 catches for 62 yards, I believe, against the Ravens, one of the best defenses in the league.
All right.
And the Colts give up a lot of underneath stuff, so I think Higgins can get more catches, so better in PPR.
That'll wrap this up. Thanks for coming. Hope you like it, and bye.